Today, we're going to look at the narrative writing task. What is the narrative writing task, you might ask? In the narrative writing task, you will read half of a story. Your job will be to continue it to the end. From that half of the story, you will use the information you learned to direct the rest of your narrative. The objective is to finish the story, so you'll have to find the resolution. You can think of this as Chapter 2, using Chapter 1, or the first part of the reading, to guide you. How can I write an excellent narrative continuation? Continuation just means that the story is going to resume. When we write a continuation, we're going to resume the story from the moment it left off. So, for example, if we're on page 3, we will continue at page 3. This means you don't have to retell the information from the story or summarize it. We already know. Instead, you can reference or build off of it to expand upon your narrative. For example, if you're playing Super Mario and you click continue, if you're on level 5, you'll be confused if you start off at level 1. Continue means to resume from the place that you last ended. So the first step. In the narrative, before we write, we need to identify the following information so we can expand upon it in our writing. We do not want to change any of the information that we have learned, as changing the story will confuse the reader. So as we read, we're going to want to find the characters, including the protagonist and antagonist. We're going to want to identify the conflict, know where the setting is, and figure out if it's in first or third person. We don't want to change any of those things. So, for example, if the story is from Leonardo's perspective, we're not going to want to change it to Michelangelo. It wouldn't make any sense and would confuse the reader. If the setting changed dramatically, we'd also be very confused. We want to keep all information intact as we write. Our second step is going to plan out the writing. To complete the story, we need to use the following. We want to use the character traits and think about how they would handle the problem. All people react to things differently. For example, we already know Michelangelo is pretty fun-loving and will joke a lot. He might say a few things that the very angry Raphael may not. In this story, we want to make it that our first solution doesn't work. The reason we do that is it makes the story much more interesting. The second solution, however, will work. Develop the conflict possibly. Think about how it could be worse or even different. By different, I don't mean to change it, but maybe we learn some more information. Use the setting in the story to make it more interesting. Develop a theme that the character will experience. What is the lesson they will learn, and how will it change them? So, if we're reading in the setting, it starts to rain, that might create additional problems. That could be very interesting. If our characters don't learn anything, it'll be confusing. More importantly, we'll wonder, why did I even read this story? So, when planning, make sure the story matters to the characters. From the beginning to the end, the characters should learn something new that will change them. In the last paragraph, the character should reflect on what they have learned from the beginning of the story to the end. If the character doesn't learn anything, it's possible that nothing happened to them. Say that Michelangelo starts off and he's angry at his family and runs away. If he realizes that he made a mistake, he might show that he cares about his family by talking to them, maybe buying them a pizza at the end. So, the next thing that we want to do, after a story is all mapped out on paper and in our head, we want it to really stand out. We're going to want to use different literary devices. That basically means we want to do things to make the story interesting. So we're going to want to use dialogue. Think about it. We talk every day. If there's no dialogue in this story, it's going to feel a little bit flat. Like, did this all take place in one character's head? It won't feel real. More importantly, everyone speaks differently, so you can make the characters even have a different way of talking. For example, in the Ninja Turtles, you might have a character who's angry and a character who's more of a leader. They might react to a situation differently. One might be optimistic when they face a problem, while the other one might want to just go home and not come back. Word choice. Word choice is simply choosing what word to use and when. If you're using a specific word a lot, try to think of a synonym or another way to express what's going on. Try to be exact with your words. If something is funny, you can include laughter. If something's scary, you can make someone's voice quiver. So, for example, if Raphael starts to yell, you might say, Raphael started to scream. Raphael started to thunder. By doing this, you're not using the same word over and over. It makes your writing much more interesting. You may also want to use imagery. Describe what is in your head as vividly as possible. This means to describe everything as clearly as you can. You can use all 5 of the senses: see, touch, taste, hear, and smell. If you use all 5 senses, I'll feel like I'm there. So, if I was to describe this pizza, I might say, Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo ate a pizza. Or I could say, they ate a golden pepperoni pizza and crunched into the crust as it was slightly burnt. One feels much more real than the other. We also want to make sure that our story's fun. You want to pre-write and make sure you have your ideas planned out, so when you approach the text, you're confident. If it's boring to write, sadly, it'll be boring to read. Have fun and be creative. This is a spot for you to do amazing things and think outside the box. If you don't have fun, neither will the reader. So, make sure your ideas are fresh and ready to roll.